To my fellow YouTubers. Today I want to come on and make a year-round wreath. Last night I was just kind of trying to spruce up my house. You know how it is when you take all the Christmas decorations down and all of a sudden everything seems very bare and dull and dreary. So I decided that I would do a little shopping in my own workshop and just put some, pops of color, nothing too drastic, throughout my house. So I made this hydrangea, lavender, and berry arrangement with some ficus leaves. And I was like, you know what? This would make for a good wreath. So that's what we're going to do today. All right. So what I love about this wreath is we are going to basically be using live TV. We're going to just be using 4 different materials to make, or 5 with the ribbon, to make this beautiful wreath, okay? So, as always when we start, the first thing that we're going to do is tackle the wreath itself. And as you can see, this one is just in crazy shape. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to trim it around because we want that nice polished look. And we're going to be doing... And so I use these clippers. These Grillies, I don't know that they're sold anymore, but you want heavy duty wire cutters. It's just better on your wrists and your hands. And so what I like to do is just go through and polish it up. Some things you can just break off with your hand. If I see something like needles, like pine needles, not needles, pine needles or leaves, I like to try and get those out, because they are already breaking down, which means when you try and glue into them, it's not going to hold, okay? So even though this is going to be my front wreath, I also am going to trim the back because I don't want to damage anybody's door, okay? So let's flip it over. And yep, there's definitely some culprits back here. Whether you're somebody who's selling a wreath, or if you're gifting it, or if it's for yourself, you don't want to be pulling paint off of anything. Especially if you're selling, customers are not going to love that. So we have a trick to resolve that at the end of this as well, using a little bit of cushioning with artificial moss. Okay, so because this is a crescent wreath, I want to decide which side I'm going to cover. Okay, and for me, I think I'm going to leave this side exposed. Also, this is very ovally. I'm not going to show you this, but when they're ovally like this, I just put them on the floor and I just smush them. Like, wreaths aren't going to break. So now it's more round, okay? Because that's the goal. All right, so now we're looking at the wreath, and I am going to cover this side up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a hook using, this is wire. It's called grapevine wire or jute wire. And what I love about it is it's going to naturally blend right in. Okay, I like to hide the mechanics and things so that my designs just have a more natural appearance. But because, as you can see, this just blends in so quickly, I'm going to mark it with a bow. And this is just so I can find where the hook is. I kind of call it my North Star too when I'm designing. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we'll do our bow. All right. So although I do like to make like big bows, a lot of my wreaths, I just like to do something really, really simple, and it's like a nice clean look. So I call this my 10 by 10 ribbon. All right, so I was kind of torn between these two, and I'm going to go with the gray linen. If you disagree with my decision, I would love to know, because then I can always swap it out. So I am going to take my ribbon. Okay, and this is 2.5 inches. It's wired. I only use wired ribbon because it just holds the structure. It also is going to weather better than if you had something that did not have wire. I am a little afraid of 4-inch wire. I'm working on it. When I use like an easy bow maker, it's something I can manage. But as far as just like doing it freestyle or freehand, I kind of struggle with it. So, all right, let's see if you can see this. Okay, so again, this is super, super easy. Let's see. So I'm going to measure 10 inches, okay? And then I'm going to pleat. So I'm going to just pinch that together. Then I'm going to measure another 10 inches. And I'm going to bring it together like this. So right now we have one loop. I'm going to twist this. And now, so there's the front of the ribbon and the back of the ribbon. So I'm going to put the back of the ribbon back down on my ruler. And I'm going to loop this up and pinch. So as you can see right now, we have 2 loops. So again, we're going to just twist and measure 10 inches. And then we're again going to pinch it, okay? So right now my thumb is holding these 3 loops. And then we want a nice tail. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball this, but this is going to be about 20 inches. So I'm going to make this one really big loop and also eyeball this at 10 inches and just trim this, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our floral wire. I'm going to get it right under where my thumb is. And you got to hold this real tight, okay? And this is why some people just solely go with the bow maker, because you don't have to have as much, you know, that you're holding in your hand to keep things together. So I'm taking my floral wire and I'm just twisting this as tight as I can, okay? And now I'm going to cut this big loop that we made in half. And this is going to be our extra set of tails. All right, so back to our wreath. For this style, I'm going to put this a little bit above the halfway mark. I always kind of picture like a bow in a little girl's hair. So I'm going to put it a little bit above. And I'm going to slide the pieces of wire right through. If you wanted to, you could just wrap them around. But again, if you're trying to hide the mechanics, then it's better to just feed it through. And then once you have it through, on the back side of your wreath, you're just going to twist this nice and tight. So I hope everyone's having a good new year. I am like off like a firecracker right now. I am really, really excited for this year. And so I have been much more disciplined, and I'm making a lot of different styles that I'm really excited about with different materials. Okay, so we kind of have this wad of our wire. I'm going to just tuck it in a little bit. We're still going to cover this at the end, but this is a major door scratcher, so I'm just going to kind of hide it there. All right, now with our ribbon, we always dovetail, and when you're dovetailing, you're going to fold your ribbon in half, and you're going to cut upward at an angle without losing a finger, okay? So we're going to do that to each of our tails. Okay, this is a nice way to polish it. Another idea that you could do is you could just go up at an angle. Okay, that also looks nice, but I'm a dovetail girl. If I'm working with like 1-inch ribbon or velvet, I might just do it like on a slanted way, not the dovetail. All right, so I like to put 2 tails out. Let's see. 2 tails out, 2 tails in. And then again, this is why we use wired ribbon, because this is going to continue to get, you know, flattened out, and then we'll fluff it right back up. Okay. So the first piece of greenery that we're going to use are ficus leaves. What I like about ficus leaves is they literally cost like 99 cents. So they're great value. I always break these up. I know if you're doing something like something for, you know, like a monument, like, you know, for like a funeral service, you would use probably the whole thing. But for something like a wreath, we're just going to break it up into 4 pieces. So I'm going to take the side piece, take this side piece, And this piece in the middle is so long that I'm going to cut it halfway. And then this little nubbin guy, I'm not going to let it go to waste because a lot of times you can kind of bulk things up or create a little texture somewhere. So I'm going to put this to the side. It's not going to be my first choice, but it is a choice. All right. Now we're taking our second one and we're going to do the same thing. Okay. And we're going to take this middle one and cut it halfway. And then I'm going to put this little nubbin guy aside. Okay. Now, people have different choices of how they want to adhere their materials. I love my Surebonder, okay? This little guy gets so hot. To use it, it's these glue pellets, okay? So they just melt so nicely. They're, again, super hot, but this is like hands-free designing. Instead of picking up a glue gun, or some people like to place it and then go back, I just like to do it as I go because I feel like if you're just placing it, which is okay if that's how you like to do it. For me, though, I feel like things are going to shift and then I'm not going to have the actual design that I intended. So, all right, we are going to get started on our wreath. Here we go. I know my camera work is just amazing. All right, so I am going to take my first piece of ficus. I'm going to dip it into my glue pan, and I'm going to put it here in my top corner of my wreath. I am really, really OCD, and so if I do something once, I'm going to do it twice. So we're going to go to the bottom corner now. And when we're working on the bottom of the wreath, you want to be going upward. Like here I slid it downward, here I slid it upward, because it's more likely, like even if there wasn't glue, it's more likely to get caught when you do it that way, okay? So what we're doing right now is we are setting the parameters. It doesn't mean, it's not like a hard, fast rule that you can't go beyond it, but this is our guide, okay? So ideally with a crescent wreath, this is gonna be left exposed. And so this is what we're going to be building in. And then I want to do something, let's see, right behind the bow, like so. So it's kind of going in between those two loops. And I'm going to put this aside for now. All right, now I'm going to take those two pieces that I'm calling nubbins that we didn't discard, and I'm just going to use them just to get some greenery in. Okay, because why let it go to waste? So it's going to be a filler in the middle. Next, I'm going to take my hydrangeas, and so these just got shipped to me, so they're a little bit flat. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of get the heads up a little straighter. Just kind of make sure that this is like falling nicely. And this is a recipe where we're not going to let anything go to waste. So what we're going to do is for these, we're going to take off all the leaves and we're going to put them aside, okay? And I like the foliage on this. If you get something and you don't like the foliage, I just toss it. I think if you're going to, you know, make this beautiful lifelike creation and then there's just this really cheap plastic greenery, I wouldn't use it because I feel like it's just going to bring your design down. Okay, so we want to kind of uphold the integrity of it. All right, so I'm going to cut these at about like 4 inches. Now, if you had a storm door or you were designing for somebody with a storm door, you might want to cut this shorter and you would have it go directly into or directly up against the base of the wreath. So just to see the difference, if this was for a storm door, I would say it's a thick stem, so you gotta really work it. Okay. Storm door is like all the way in and flat, okay? Because otherwise, if you have it sticking out, this is just gonna all look smushed, okay? So we're not designing this for a storm door. I just figured I'd add that in. Okay, so I'm going to take my hydrangea. I'm going to dip it in my glue. And I'm going to put this in. Now, I'm not going to crowd my bow too much. I want it like nestled, but I don't want it to like swallow up the bow. So we're going to leave this just a little off to the side. Now we're going to repeat this step. Dip it in the glue. So this wreath is very similar to my signature wreath, which I just ran the stats on the other day, and I have sold it 220 times, which is bananas. So today is a multiples day, which means that I'm just going to work on creating a series of those signature wreaths, like probably 5. It's not the most exciting day, but it is a day that pays the bills. So I encourage people to do multiples when you have a good seller, whether it's on Etsy or your direct site, especially if it's on Etsy. Etsy loves multiples. Just so you know, I'm taking these leaves instead of discarding them, and I'm just going to start framing out our hydrangea. So for the Etsy algorithm, if it sees that you continually are selling the same thing, it tells Etsy, okay, I know Etsy's going to make money if we kind of put this listing higher than other listings, because they know it's almost guaranteed that it's going to sell. So if you're on Etsy, multiples are the way to go. All right, so here I put the 3 leaves that were on our stem, and I'm putting them to use by just framing out our hydrangeas. Okay. I'm going to put the 2 big ones towards the bottom. Okay, so I just dropped glue here. I don't know if you can see it or not. Instead of touching it when it's wet, I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm just going to like peel it off. I know sometimes it's tempting to swipe it, but you have a better chance of getting it off if you just let it dry. Same thing with your ribbon. All right, up here. So as you can see, everything is identical. And because I've made this wreath so many times, or like this general design, the muscle memory is strong here. So this does not take me a long time. It might not, like I said, be the most exciting thing, but it is something that I can do relatively quickly and accurately. All right, so right now we're already in good shape. Okay, this wreath, say you wanted just something very, very simple for year round. Okay, this already looks great. So we've used 2 hydrangeas, 2 ficus, and a bow. Okay, already looking good. But now we want to put some extra detail in it. I'm all about the detail and the texture. I think that's what makes somebody's work stand out. So we are going to go in first with these lavender, okay? And these lavender are plastic. Not all plastic florals are bad. It just depends. I got some florals the other day that they were beautiful, but they smelled so much like gasoline that I even let them air out for like 3 days, and they actually made the side room that I had them in my workshop smell. So those are going back. There's no way to hide that, and you definitely don't want to pass that on to a customer. Like, I would be horrified if I got something that smelled like gasoline. So those are going back. So what I'm going to do here with this lavender, these all push up. Okay, and these are my favorite types of floral bushes because they give you a little bit of control and you don't have to lose all this foliage. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to push each of these up a little bit. If you go crazy with your wreath making strength and like go, you're just going to blow the top of the flower off. And then you could glue it. It's not gone, but there's just no need to disrupt it. So gently slide it up. All right. I hear a shepherd. Yes, she's just watching me from the side. Okay, hi, Erdy. Okay, so now these are all up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wire cutters and I'm going to cut them. I'm going to give them like about 2 or 3 inches at the stem. Okay, so I'm going to cut them all off and put them right here for now. So So I would love to know for people that are watching if you're a maker, if you make for yourself or like friends and family, or if you make them to sell. Because for me, I used to just make them for friends and family. I find it to be like super therapeutic. So even when I'm done working, sometimes what I'll do to decompress is like basically work more and make more things because it really does bring me a lot of joy. All right, so we've got this all trimmed. So now looking back at our wreath, we are going to start to pepper these in. And this is where kind of doing OCD things helps because you want to maintain a good balance. I got to work on my camera angle. Sorry, guys. All right, so here we go. I'm going to dip my first one in and go to this top corner. The top corner is it's just always where I begin. And I think it's good to just have a little bit of a system. So for this one, I want one that's got a little bit of a longer stem. All right, and then we're going to go in and we're going to repeat that. Okay. Now I'm just going to start distributing these evenly throughout. And it's okay to give, and it's not even just okay, it's actually preferred to give things a little bend. When you look at things growing in nature, they don't grow straight up and down. So I think it's like a nice touch when you take florals and you give it a little bend, or like if you had, I don't know, like peonies or something like that, and you actually, bent the heads in different ways, it just looks a lot more natural. All right, so I'm going to put one of these right behind the bow. Okay, now going back to the glue that I dropped. I let it dry, and because I did, it let me just pull it off, okay? So resist the urge, and you'll also save your skin from being fried a little bit. Okay, so here we go. I always like to have something interesting trailing off, like cascading. So I'm going to make sure that I have a few of these for the end. Okay, and again, the ficus, everything is so malleable, so don't ever be afraid to just give it a good bend. Let's see. Okay, and then I'm going to put one right over these leaves. And I like this because it's almost like all this stuff is like growing together. Okay, now we're going to go down below and repeat. So the first thing I'm going to do, get the ones, okay, drop more glue, leave it, let it dry. Right, and then we're going to repeat that step. This one. All right. And then we're going to put one right over the leaves. All right. So again, we're introducing color. I think it looks beautiful already, but wait, there's more. Okay, so we're gonna take these. These berries are like my seasonal favorite. So these are lavender. I also have them in pink, and they are so beautiful. They have like little touches of yellow to them. I love the foliage. I love everything about them. It's so hard to find good berries. If you use those ones that are like just really styrofoamy, they just get eaten up by the sun so quickly. So these have like a nice hard coating on them, which means they're gonna withstand when I put UV spray on them. And it's gonna take a lot more for them to actually like start to come undone. So these are the kind of berries that you could get like years out of versus a season. So even though it's a little more expensive than doing the more foam berries, it's definitely worth it. All right, so these have 3 on each stem. So for this one, the stem is a little short. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna save it with some of the main stem. We want options. If you should cut something too short, you can always use floral picks. But if you can save yourself the time, I would say just kind of be cautious when you're cutting things. Okay, so again, like this stem is so short, I just don't know if it's going to be helpful. So I'm going to cut this piece off. Sorry. And I'm going to use some of the main stem. All right, let's see. So when we're working with our berries, now there are two different sizes on here. And that makes a difference when you want things balanced. So there is the large one and then there's the small one. So we're going to use these differently. Okay, so I am going to take one of the large ones and I'm going to put it right here. Do we like that? Okay. I think instead I'm going to lay it over these leaves because I don't know, that just didn't, that looked a little like clumpy to me. All right. So we're going to go over. Okay. I don't want these facing, I don't want these like going as far out as they're going. So I'm just going to try and bend them back a little and have it more like head first. Okay. New products, got to figure out how to make them work. Okay, now I'm going to take my next one and we're going to repeat the same thing. So I'm going to go over the leaves. So it's right next to the hydrangea. Now, I don't really just glue on top of everything. I make sure that everything is going into the wreath. I just think it's too risky to just take something and just glue it. I don't trust it. So I think to be thorough, it makes sense to just make sure that you're actually weaving it in. All right, now I'm going to take these small berries. All right, so it turns out I don't need this, but I had options. So I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to put it right here with our bow. I haven't made this before, so it's a little bit of an experiment for me too about how I want to use these materials, but I think that looks really sweet. Okay, I'm going to go and repeat. Okay, dip it in my glue and get it right in there. See, I like that. So let's see, where's this one's foliage? Let's do the same thing. All right, let me just refluff our bow. All right, and we've got 2 more to go. I am thinking over and under the hydrangeas. So I don't want it too close to this one, so I'm going to do this more in the corner. Again, my recipe, I always end up starting in the corner and then going from there. And you, if you wanted to save the berries, you could maybe just also just use, you know, the first 4 stems. You don't have to use all of them. I'm kind of an extra gal, so we're going to go ahead and use them all. Because I'm working on the bottom part of the wreath, I am sliding up. So it gets nice and caught in the grapevine in addition to the glue that's on them. Okay, so we have everything on this at this point. I'm just gonna do some like nitpicky stuff. So one thing is when I was cleaning it, I didn't quite notice how much this is sticking out. So we're gonna go back, we're gonna polish that off. Okay, I dropped some glue here, peeled right off because I let it dry. Okay, and then, so I always like to take a step back and look at my wreaths because I feel like when you're really close up, you don't always catch things. So taking a step back, like if you want, sometimes I take like a photo of it, or I might hang it on one of my doors. So even though I felt like I did everything balanced, there's definitely something missing here. See, up here is so nice and full, and down here we have this bare area. So I'm gonna take another piece of ficus just to balance that out, okay? Like when I do workshops, I think it's better when people actually have an easel and they can like stand up and work. So we're gonna just take a step back and then correct accordingly. Okay, so now to me that looks a lot more even and balanced. Now to finish off our wreaths, finishing is really important because again, it's about the details. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my wreath and I'm gonna flip it over. And you can see here on the back, like stems that are sticking out, okay? So what we're gonna do is, one, we don't want it to scratch our door. And two, if the part with the glue on it is sticking out, then what's holding it to the wreath? Okay, so this is kind of a multi-step part of how you finish your wreath. Okay, so I'm gonna be using some preserved moss. Okay, I keep a jar of this and my Spanish moss on my workbench because everything kind of needs a little bit of finishing. That's how we hide the mechanics. That's how we keep things looking nice and natural. Okay. So to start, I am going to start to cut off the pieces that are sticking out. Okay, so and if you can see, like this is the piece that had the glue on it. Don't mind my hand's green from the moss now. So this is a piece that had the glue on it. So this is why it's really important to go back and anything that you trim, we're gonna hit with glue again. Okay. Hydrangea stems are so thick. All right, so now between the stems and our wire, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and we're gonna use this glue gun. So again, this is wireless, or cordless, sorry, which means it's much more hands-free than using a glue gun that has a cord. And this thing heats up. This thing is no joke. Okay, so I'm kind of giving the glue just like a second to cool a little bit. And then I'm going to go in with my moss and I'm just going to tap it. I'm not looking to be a hero and lose my fingers over this. So we are just going to lightly tap this on. A Wreath hero. I'm not sure that exists, but you get what I mean. I'm not going to burn myself. All right. So what's nice is we are hiding the mechanics and we're protecting the door at the same time. Okay, so our wreath is nice and polished. What I would do now is, any wreath maker knows that there's always going to be glue hairs. So I'm going to use just a regular hair dryer. I'm not going to do it here and like blast your ears, but I just use a hair dryer and I use it on like a warm to hot setting, but I don't keep it too close to anything. If you're working with plastic and you get significant heat on it, it's going to alter the way that your permanent botanicals look. So I don't do that. And then the last thing, and this is done outdoors, is I use this Krylon UV spray. And I love this. In my care instructions when I sell my wreaths, I also include that I recommend that people use this Krylon spray. Okay, it's made specifically for florals. And what it does is it extends the life of your wreath because it takes a lot longer for the sun and the UV rays to kind of eat away at the materials. So if you see somebody with like a blue wreath, that's because the greenery kind of soured from the sun. So you can get this at Michael's. I feel like it's 12 bucks, but you know, there's always like a coupon, and this is going to last you for a really long time. So anything that I send out, I already treat. But also for my own wreaths, typically if I get like 4 to 5 years out of them. If I don't use them anymore, it's probably because I'm just tired of the design and I just want to move on. So at the beginning and end of every season, I have a few steps that I do to like care for my wreaths. but the Krylon is probably the most important to keep the longevity going. All right, YouTube. So this is our wreath. I'd love to know what you think. And if there's something else that you're interested in seeing, I definitely would love to hear because I'd love to help you. That's how I learned so much. I learned a lot from Julie Samacchio, and so I just, want to do the same thing for other people. So if there's ever anything I can help with or you have questions, please just let me know. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.